Hello, my name is Art Delinsky, and you're listening to the Art Deli Sideshow. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're headed to the West Coast, where a new bill titled AB 2624 was passed by the California State Assembly and has quickly drew the ire of MAGA-aligned anti-fraud crusaders who have dubbed it the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Now, some are saying that this bill is a response to the Trump administration going after fraud in government-funded programs, ranging from food stamps to housing and more. While the conversation around fraud in taxpayer-funded programs has been going on for decades, the topic was reintroduced for public consumption after a YouTuber named Nick Shirley published a video about government-funded daycare centers in Minnesota. This went viral after being boosted by GOP leaders, including J.D. Vance and Kash Patel. Nick quickly became the spokesperson for fraud and corruption in government programs. In these daycare center videos, the Minnesota one is sitting at about 100 million views, were mostly run or aimed at Somali Americans and Somali migrants and Somali asylum seekers in that community, and contain moments where viewers can see Nick Shirley being unable to receive information about student enrollment in the daycare. At some points, he was turned away, and there were parts of the video that showcased empty or closed daycare centers during regular operating hours. I think that one of the most memorable moments of this viral clip, and honestly, I think what kind of triggered all this intense outrage, which is also a little bit racist and xenophobic, but that's not the point of this video, was a moment where they showed the Quality Learning Center, which was clearly misspelled. It's supposed to be the Quality Learning Center. And these daycare centers have since been investigated for federal fraud. We're talking about millions of dollars. Federal funding has been halted to Minnesota, in addition to overhauling the whole government public program oversight committees. And of course, Tim Walz, he dropped out of his race right now, so he's not running. He felt like he really screwed the pooch on this one, and I can't really blame him. Since then, Nick Shirley has taken on his anti-fraud show on the road, and he was in California. He went there to expose their government program fraud, and expose he did. He found millions of dollars worth of hospice and healthcare fraud, which resulted in intense public scrutiny, again, this time from Californians who pushed California lawmakers to open an investigation, which they did, and recently announced that they are charging 21 suspects with large-scale hospice and fraud schemes that allegedly stole over $200 million from the state's Medi-Cal program. 2 months after Nick Shirley's investigation or, video about this fraud in California, the California State Assembly passed AB 2624, a bill which critics say would criminalize anyone trying to investigate fraud in government-funded programs, and have dubbed it, like I said before, the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Proponents of the bill claim that this bill is an anti-doxing, anti-harassment bill aimed to protect employees of organizations providing services to immigrants. Now, before we get into it, I'd like us to listen to this Newsmax piece, and then I'll get back in just a moment.
YouTuber Nick Shirley calling out a proposed California bill that he claims would criminalize investigative journalism, including his viral efforts to expose fraud in the state.
Correspondent Heather Myers is live in San Diego with the details on this. Heather, good morning.
Good morning to you, Sean and Christine. The author of this bill, which is California Assembly Bill 2624, is Democratic Assemblywoman Mia Bonta. And if her last name sounds familiar, it is. In fact, her husband is the Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta. So Republicans have nicknamed this bill the Stop Nick Shirley Act, and it aims to, quote, protect the privacy and stop the harassment of those who provide services to immigrants. It would put into place restrictions around recording and posting content, including names and workplace or home addresses of those who work for these taxpayer-funded organizations. Anyone who posts these videos or photo could be subject to a $10,000 fine, jail time, and even forced to take the content down. But critics are raising concerns about how far those limits could go. Nick Shirley, who built a large online following investigative alleged fraud, says the bill could end up criminalizing investigative journalism.
For instance, if this bill is passed, the Quality Learning Center that was in Minnesota would be protected from being exposed. That is absolutely crazy.
So Assemblywoman Mia Bonta says this is about protecting privacy and preventing harassment and doxing for the workers who work at these taxpayer-funded organizations who, again, provide services to immigrants. She says it's not about shutting down legitimate reporting.
Individuals who were investigating were journalists. This bill it ensures that we protect lawful free speech and opportunity for criticism.
California Democrat politicians not only won't do anything about the fraud, but they're going after the people who are trying to uncover these crimes and the waste of taxpayer money. It is shameful, and all of these politicians ought to be called on the carpet.
So this bill has already passed through the first committee, and if it does become law, Republican Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, who you just heard from at the end there, says this is sure to face a legal battle.
Thank you, Newsmax. Now, one thing that they didn't mention is that this bill is actually an expansion on an existing program. I'm going to put it up on the screen. It's called the Safe at Home program, which is a confidential address program administered by the California Secretary of State's office and is most effective when is used as a part of an overall safety plan. Safe at Home offers a substitute mailing address to receive first-class, certified, and registered mail for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, child abduction, and elder or dependent adult abuse, as well as, and this is the important part, as well as reproductive health care workers and public entity employees who are in fear for their safety. This means that the state assembly is folding in immigration service providers into the mix of what is considered a public entity employees. Now, if we keep reading here, this address is also accepted by California state, county, and state government agencies in lieu of a residential or other mailing address where a victim can be tracked down, keeping the residence address confidential and out of the hands of someone who might want to hurt the victim. It's another question that comes to mind is, if this is being dubbed as the Stop Nick Shirley Act, did Nick Shirley harm anyone? Did he create an environment of harassment? Did he actually dox anyone? Because on the other hand, and we heard it and we'll hear it again, the author of this bill, when asked about whether Nick Shirley's investigation, for lack of better words, or just his video, would that have counted as harassment and would that fall under this new bill as something illegal? And she said no. She said it's legitimate journalism. So Nick Shirley 1, haters 0. So this is just really bringing up a lot of very interesting questions. So let's go ahead and hear from the California State Assembly themselves discussing this on the day that they passed this bill.
The Somali leering centers that were the subject of a national outcry on fraud, could they not be defined? Could they not fall under the definition that you've provided, that if a citizen journalist or if CBS News that just showed up at a building looking at fake hospices in LA, showed up at some of these so-called service providers and was investigating waste, fraud, and abuse and took video of the offices and questioned
Mr. DeMaio, I believe that your question is would those facilities qualify under the bill? And let's ask that question and reserve your time for your opinion afterwards.
In your scenario, Assemblymember DeMaio, the folks who were investigating that were reporters, journalists. They were not subjecting any particular organization to violence or threats of violence. That is the nature of this bill.
No. Okay, so let me draw your attention. The reason why I wanted to establish that, because in section 6218.19, it says a person, business, or association shall not knowingly publicly post or publicly display, disclose, or distribute on the internet, websites, or social media the personal information which relates to the work site, those fake hospices that my colleagues so diligently and effectively helped reveal in Los Angeles, or the Leering Center that Mr. Shirley revealed in Minnesota. Quote, any image of any designated immigration support services provider. You just acknowledged that those organizations would fall under the definition of designated immigration support services provider.
Assemblymember DeMaio, I acknowledged, just to clarify, because you're mischaracterizing what I supposedly acknowledged. What I acknowledged was that under the scenario that you offered, that individuals who were investigating were journalists. This bill ensures that we protect lawful free speech and opportunity for criticism.
Hold on a second. You do not provide an exemption for journalists. You also do not distinguish between whether posting video, like Ms. Macedo in her investigation, posted a video of 90 fake hospices, and Mr. Shirley had dozens or 50, 60 fake leering centers for the Somali community in Minnesota. Posting the video apparently would be punishable under your law. Are you aware of those provisions?
In this bill, applicants have to show evidence of threats, harassment, or violence. In the scenario that you've offered, neither of those things were trying to be done.
No, not under 6.
Oh, God, that's so painful to listen to that. That was the opposition, Mr. Assemblymember Carl DeMaio. And he was basically wondering the same thing. He was saying, if a citizen journalist or any journalist for that matter goes and investigates some sort of fraud or suspected fraud at a government-funded program like folks have been doing, would that be illegal? And so it's interesting because politicians, fuck them. Politician Mia said, well, them doing the investigation is not illegal. And he asked, great question, until he fucking was able to spit it out. He asked, well, but the provision says that posting anything around people's personal work addresses or personal address, which I get personal address, you should definitely not be posting it, but their work address, like let's say, for example, for the immigration support services, if it's, on 5th Street and you post the immigration service building on 5th Street is committing fraud, then it's going to be, it's part of the investigation and part of reporting about it. So he's saying, but the posting about it and the posting of the building, for example, under this law would be illegal or would be an offense and would be punishable and penalized. And so what she's saying is that they are, and the people who investigated, including Nick Shirley, drop name, they are protected under the First Amendment because they are journalists. Now, Carl, who's again like in opposition to this, he's saying that they might be allowed to investigate, but the act of posting their investigation online is what's going to get them in trouble. And then Mia Bonta, who wrote this bill, she's saying that if there aren't any kind of harassment or doxing that happens as a result of this investigation, then they are in the clear, then it's legal. Now, my thing is, how are you going to control whether you post something that annoys someone so much so, that pisses someone off so much so that they decide to rally around it? If a person posts something about fraud or anything, and then the viewer, the audience, decides to do something about that, who's held accountable to that? That's what I'm asking. And also, we heard it from Mia Bonta, who is the California State Assembly member who wrote this. She herself said that there was not any kind of criminal or violent or doxing or harassment that ensued Nick Shirley's investigation into the California hospice fraud. So I'm not sure why Nick Shirley is embedding himself into this and why this is becoming in any way related to Nick Shirley, because very clearly he didn't do anything illegal. But I'm not here to defend him. I just hope this isn't in any way coming off as though I'm defending Nick Shirley. Not at all. And I kind of want to say he's just as bad as Don Lemon, but it really is apples and oranges. And even in this situation, I've definitely can see people trying to draw lines between Nick Shirley and Don Lemon. But we just heard from the person who wrote this bill that this has nothing to do with Nick Shirley, and that what Nick Shirley did was not illegal and would not be an offense if this bill was now law. What happened with Don Lemon was much, much worse. It was the government overreaching and the DOJ having to bypass 2 judges and conjure up a grand jury and manipulate in any shape, way, or form that they could in order to make the case stick against Don Lemon for basically doing his job as a reporter and reporting on what was happening in Minneapolis. I have an episode about it. I'll pop it up on the screen. But what I want to consider now together, is this government overreach? Is this protecting folks who are working for organizations that maybe do work that some people find contentious? Or is this a way of silencing journalists and silencing the good work of the good anti-fraud work that folks like Nick Shirley is doing? And also, like, again, putting out there fraud is bad. I'm going to keep repeating myself. Maybe I'm being a little glib about it, but it is bad. And it also is really bad to give the government very rigid tools to then use against us. And so I can see how if folks work at an organization that's supposed to help, Somali migrants, I can see how some people would find that a target to go after and maybe go and harass that person at their job, or maybe go harass them at their house. So I can definitely see the reasoning behind both of these. So this is why I'm quite conflicted, although I am definitely going to err on the side of the government is trying to have more power and control over my life. So I'm going to go to Assemblymember Banta's official website, setting the record straight on AB 2624. Assemblymember Banta corrects misinformation circulating about AB 2624, privacy for immigration support service providers. Now, let's go over this together. Get the facts. Responding to misconceptions about AB 2624. You can look up at the screen. We're looking at a screen that has one column that says claim, and it's in red and says false. And then on the right side, it says correction. So we're going to read through some of these claims and her corrections around them. Claim number 1, AB 2624 would criminalize investigative journalism and penalize independent journalists. False. The correction is the bill's civil and criminal penalties require demonstrated intent to incite imminent great bodily harm or place a program participant in objectively reasonable fear for their safety. Investigative journalism, such as visiting locations, filming in public, publishing reports, does not meet that standard and is not touched by this bill. Additionally, Section 6218.19B3 of the bill explicitly references California Evidence Code 1072, the state's journalist shield status. Interesting. Okay. I would personally like to actually read that a little closer. I think that I would like something more explicit. I would actually love to see if there are any kind of investigative journalist advocacy groups, what they are saying around this. I'll try to take a look at that later. All right, second claim. There's no differentiation for, I don't know if I said that right, for journalists. It says any individual who does this, any corporation, any business who posts a video, full stop. There's no exemption for journalists. The correction is California's longstanding evidence code is explicitly referenced in the bill language. That status defines journalists and news organizations and provides the state's press shield. Oh, gotta take a look at that. Beyond the exemption, every enforcement provision in the bill requires proof for specific harmful intent, not merely the act of posting video or information. Doxing and incited violence are not journalism. So if what she just said, what they're saying is doxing and violence is not journalism, or harassment, it's not journalism, because those things are illegal. So why can't we just refer to the existing laws for people who commit these crimes? Why do we need to create another law, or technically expand an existing law? That's kind of my question. The next claim is AB 2624 is the Stop Nick Shirley. Next claim, AB 2624 is the, quote, Stop Nick Shirley Act. The correction is this characterization has no basis in the bill's text, legislative history, or author's intent. AB 2624 is targeted at doxing individuals' home addresses and personal information with intent to incite violence, conduct with no overlapping with investigative work. This bill was introduced in response to documented escalating harassment of immigrant service workers. Any insinuation this bill would apply to Nick Shirley is insinuating that Nick Shirley intends to dox individuals' personal information with the intent to incite violence. I'm not going to say anything about that. Next one, AB 2624 would shield, quote, taxpayer-funded organizations from public scrutiny. The correction is AB 2624 creates a confidentiality program for individual workers, not organizations. Okay, yeah, thank you for clarifying. Organizational public record obligations, nonprofit financial disclosures, and accountability mechanisms are governed by entirely separate law. This bill does not modify, limit, or intersect with the California Public Records Act as applied to organizations. Institutional transparency and individual worker safeties are separate matters. I could see that. This bill addresses only the latter. Interesting. Okay. Baseless. This is one of all the other claims were false. This one is baseless. Interesting. AB 2624 is, quote, completely unconstitutional. And the correction is AB 2624 mirrors existing California law already on the books that's already operational, the Safe at Home address confidentiality program for reproductive health workers, gender affirming care providers. No constitutional challenge to those program is pending. Interesting. Very interesting. Should we read the rest? Yeah, it's not a lot. I'll just finish off I'll finish off while reading this. AB 2624 extends California Safe at Home program. Okay, we read that already. The context. Here, we'll just read the context. This bill was introduced in direct response to a documented escalation of threats against immigration service workers across the state of California. Testimony before the Assembly Privacy Committee included the following account from Angelica Salas, the executive director for CHIRLA, CHIRLA. We received a lot of hate calls, a lot of threats of violence against our organization. I'm personally named consistently, and the threats of violence are extreme. Our staff just recently going out to lunch had people outside asking for their names, asking them questions, really attacking their ability to move from one place to another, trying to get into our office. It happened to me and happened to a family member. They were looking for me and ended up at my mother's home. Fucking sucks, dude. Oh, let a motherfucker go to my mom's house? Oh, you wish you could only legislate. Oh, I'd legislate you right back to your maker. There's so many of my colleagues where individuals have shown up at their homes who have been threatened, and this is not just organizations, but many others. So that is what the authors of AB 2624 is saying. This is a privacy and anti-doxing, anti-harassment extension of an existing program called Safe at Home program in California, while folks who are opposing this are saying that this is a threat on investigative journalism and have dubbed this the Stop Nick Shirley Act. My name is Art Delinsky, and I've been talking with you about this very interesting development happening in California. They are going to be voting on this. It's not law just yet, but interesting stuff. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please like and subscribe, because this is YouTube, apparently. You can go over to Instagram if you'd like to reach out at Art Deli Sideshow. Questions, comments, concerns, cues, views, or if you just want to say, how are you? I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll be back soon. Okay, love you. Bye.